So I had previously had a lot of business experience. I had run my own businesses. I'd been in retail management, which is where I started originally, and I'd been in management consultancy. And I wanted to change because I don't know if you've ever been a management consultant, but you don't have any time at home. And and I wanted to have a life. And so I thought I'd change direction. And I saw a cryptic advert that said, "Can you negotiate at senior level without being phased?" And I thought, well, I've been sitting opposite CEOs and telling them what's wrong with their business. I think I can do that. And I responded, and I found out about this weird world of speaker bureaus I never even knew existed, and I was hooked. I was so lucky. I landed with my first bureau, a really great trainer, somebody who really mentored me and trained me. And that was actually the founder of the Speaker Bureau. And what was brilliant about this particular Speaker Bureau, and I'm happy to say who it was, the man was Alex Krywald, sadly no longer with us, who founded Celebrity Speakers, now called CSA. And what was brilliant about him is he really understood business. And it wasn't about putting speakers in to entertain. It was really about advancing the business. And I remember spending 3 weeks learning what to do before I was allowed to speak to a speaker or to a client. So he really set me up for success. And the other thing he did, and I've had a few people in my life, in my business career, who've done this for me, he expected a great deal from me. He knew what I was capable of before I was, and he set really high targets for me, and I would achieve them, and I would do them. So that was brilliant. And then after Alex, I went to another bureau. I went to London Speaker Bureau, and then I started my own bureau. But what I've always had, I've had access to the biggest and best brains on the planet in the last 23 years, both my clients, but mainly my speakers, if I'm honest. And I've managed to get advice and help and support from my speakers throughout. And I am privileged, absolutely privileged. I call it rarefied air. So that amazing community of speakers is just phenomenal. COVID has been horrible. It's been a corona coaster for me. And what's changed? Everything has changed. Everything. On a personal level, unfortunately, we've lost family members, so that's been horrible. We've been touched in that way. But on a business level, 23 years of business were wiped out in something like 2 months. Literally, it was just horrific. It recovered. The bureau business recovered, and that's wonderful. And in fact, it's really optimistic now, and it looks like it's going to be 2022 is going to be phenomenal, and already there are things happening, and the virtual world has really changed. But what changed dramatically for me personally and my team is that we saw that speakers were struggling. Speakers were struggling to adapt to this new world, as we called it, sort of speaking in a different world, the virtual environment, and they were struggling to earn the same amount of money as they were earning before, which they needed to do because they were spending the same as they were before. And so we switched in June to work full-time, half of my team, full-time, supporting speakers with their speaking businesses, and the other half continued with the bureau. So that's what changed dramatically. And it's a completely different way of thinking, a different way of doing, huge learning curve, huge challenge, incredibly rewarding. I'm looking forward to focusing on one thing. And I encourage people to focus on one thing if they can, because it lifts all the stress off. So I'm focusing just on the speakers now and working with the speakers and helping to build the speaking businesses. I've let go of the bureau side of my business, and actually London Speaker Bureau has taken that side of the business back into their business, which is wonderful. So everyone's still being looked after, and that's still growing and still being nurtured. But I'm really looking forward to focusing specifically on the speakers and really helping them to have great success. Get as close as you possibly can to your customers and constantly talk to them, engage with them, understand where they are. And there's such a huge focus, everyone's on social media and we're following each other and we're listening to each other and we get distracted. But at the end of the day, focus on the customer and also focus on your team and your network as well. It's that the human part is so important, that relationship part. And I mean, there's a couple of insights. There's that, but it's also communicating really clearly what's going on, really communicating honestly and clearly, because you can imagine it's been a bit of a traumatic experience to completely change the business and to start again. And I've communicated all the way through with my team so that there's been no surprises, and agreed the strategies and agreed what the process is going to be. So I haven't thrust things upon them. I've taken them with me, and I think that's really important when you're going through a huge change. I'm doing a double header with Alan Stevens. Now, what's lovely about that is that we must be two of the oldest people actually in the speaking industry. So we know a lot about what's happened in the past, but we've seen the future. We know it works. We're going to be talking to you about what's happening in the future. Come and join us.